my story in a nutshell, just to set the stage. Grew up in a, just in case you just decided to not go back to the original.
Why wouldn't they
story.
do that? I think they'll do that.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Grew up in a Christian home, made my own decision for Christ at a young age. Starting in high school, got very serious about my faith, along with this guy right here, which continued through college. Then after got involved with campus ministry, then after college we eventually went on staff with Campus Crusade to train students in evangelism. Now, my understanding growing up and also well into adulthood was that what the church believed, which was largely based on what the Bible said, was true. And many things that the world, those outside the church, thought, the things that they thought were true were actually lies, right? So what we had inside the church was the truth, and what the world had was lies. And more specifically, when it came to the Bible, everything that it touches on, it is true. It is true in, right? So anywhere that science and history and archaeology, et cetera, appears to contradict the Bible, either that is not an actual contradiction or the worldly philosophy or perspective is wrong. Like that's kind of what I was rooted in, right? And then, but I was also very curious and I constantly sort of re-derived my faith and would go back to the beginning, and because as you get exposed to other perspectives and worldviews, which is kind of impossible not to in this day and age with the internet, you continually sort of check yourself and go back and try to rebuild the foundation and make sure like, okay, I wanna make sure that this is, that I can derive this, I can explain this, I can communicate this to myself and others, right? But over the course of my adult life, I came to think that Christians might actually have it backwards. I.e., when the secular scientists, historians, archaeologists, et cetera, question the truth of something in the Bible, they most likely were right? That was the process, it was a slow and steady shift. And then coming to that conclusion, which I finally got all the way on the other side of that, coming to that conclusion gave me permission to question what I kind of call the underlying cosmic principles of evangelical Christianity. Namely, people are born into a broken relationship with God, and if they don't reconcile that relationship through Jesus, they will spend eternity in unthinkable torment in hell. And when I started thinking like, that's not even something that I want to believe. Mm-hmm. I had given myself the permission to not have to believe it because I no longer believed the underlying sort of ideas that led to that, right? And at that point is when I was like, okay, no longer consider myself a Christian. And that happened, I can't remember what year I said that was when I went back to my story, but you know, at least several years ago. Now, a lot of people pointed out that it seemed like the two of us were not rejecting Christianity per se, but we were rejecting evangelical Christianity.
Okay.
Right? And maybe more specifically, Southern evangelical Christianity. Mm-hmm. And I'll say I somewhat agree with that. Because that is what we had, and that is what we experienced, and that was our story, and that is what we rejected. But I will also say that, you know, I don't think that Jesus rose from the dead. I don't think that God's ultimate true manifestation is in the person of Jesus. And so I would say that that puts me safely outside of the Christian camp, philosophically, right?
So, yes.
So I would also say that. So I have also come to that conclusion. That's where I'm at right now. That's my thinking about it. Having said all that, I will say that most of what I'm gonna say today is intended for the evangelical church, and more specifically, the white evangelical church in America. Because again, that's the world I come from, that's the world I know, that's the world I left. And I am going to say some things that are difficult to hear if you are in the white evangelical church. And again, I do not say any of this to be like, to get back at anybody for saying anything about me. Again, I'm grateful for the criticism that I received. I am pre-grateful for the criticism I will receive for this because
pre-grateful.
It continues to make me a person who cares less about the opinions of others, which is a healthier person. And it may be hard to hear this, but I'm not lying when I say that I say these things out of love. And I say them with a true hope that they will ultimately have a positive impact. You just have to take my word for it.
To watch more Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist on the right.
To watch the previous episode of Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist to the left.
And don't forget to click on the circular icon to subscribe.
If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for being your mythical best.